Thank you very much for listening to this week's share on the Sedra of Behaalosecha, and we dedicate our learning to the safe and speedy release of all of the hostages in Gaza and the safety and success of all of the soldiers in the IDF. And the name of this week's Sedra, Behaalosecha, very interestingly and tellingly translated in the Gutnick Chumash as when you fire up. This is the instruction to Aaron HaKohen to light the menorah. Chapter 8, verse 2 of Bamidbar, Numbers. Daber el Aaron, speak to Aaron, v'amarta elav bahalosecha es haneres el mul penei hamenorah, ya'iru shivas haneres. When you fire up the lamps of the menorah, the wicks should be angled so that the 7 lamps cast their light towards the center lamp of the menorah. And the interesting translation, when you fire up, it's not the Behaalosecha, the root Aleph Lamed Hey, is not the root that we would expect when it comes to lighting. We would perhaps expect lahadlik, hadlaka. This is the word that is usually used for kindling, for lighting a lamp. But the aliyah, the concept of raising up, of going up, has meant that different interpretations have been ascribed to this section of the Sedra, which talks about Aaron lighting the menorah. And it does seem to be a repetition and out of place because we've heard a lot about the menorah in the Sedras in Shemos of Teruma Tetzaveh Vayakel Pekude, and these are the Sedras that focus on the Mishkan and the tabernacle and the contents of that, and so it's almost a throwback to this earlier information and detail. But this concept of lifting up, I think, has lent itself to a sort of a broader interpretation. How do we lift ourselves up when we are feeling discouraged, when we are feeling overwhelmed? And really, this is why, one of the reasons why we have this section, because the previous Sedra, the end of the previous Sedra, it describes the gifts of the princes that the princes brought to the construction to the Mishkan. And Aaron felt upset that he had not been part of this. He had not given any gifts to the Mishkan. And so Hashem, as it were, consoles him by saying, when you raise up the lights of the menorah, this menorah that is in the Mishkan, in the tabernacle, but also is going to feature in the Hanukkah, the events that we commemorate of Hanukkah, and this perpetual practice, uniquely among all of the customs and the items in the Mishkan, that at this point we are not carrying out the particular services of the Mishkan, but through the events of Hanukkah and our constant commemoration of these events, we are still lighting that menorah. And this was the consolation that was given to Aaron HaKohen when he felt down because he hadn't brought a gift to the Mishkan. And the concept, the very beautiful concept that is actually suggested by the Rashbam, because the explanation of Rashi that 6 lights of the menorah were sort of angled inwards towards the center light, which represents the pillar of Torah in the menorah. But the Rashbam comments that all 7 lights were not angled, because it should have said that the verse actually says you should 7 lights go opposite the face of the menorah. But really, it was only 6 lights, because the center plank obviously was not angled. They were all inclining towards that. So from that, the Rashbam actually says that when it says mul panei ha-menorah, although it's referring to opposite the menorah actually was opposite the shulchan, the table in the Mishkan. And the table represented the material aspects of our lives, the sustenance, the food, the nourishment that we eat, and the physical reality that we are during the duration of our lives. And so the light of the menorah, all 7 of those lights, illuminated the table. And the Rashbam learns from this that we have one of the ways of raising ourselves up is having this combination of the spiritual lighting up the physical from the actual position of the menorah facing the shulchan. And this is something that we can use to elevate our lives when we have physical circumstances that we are, yes, physicality is important, but it is not the sole focus, and it is always going to be the combination and the way that spiritual perspectives and goals are going to enhance and going to elevate, literally raise up the physical. So this is one area in which, in this Sedra called Behaalosecha, which is talking about lifting up, directly referring to the lights of menorah, but can be interpreted in a broader sense. This is one way that we talk about raising up. I think that there is another episode in this week's Sedra that is also a very uplifting message and lesson for us. And that is the section that deals with what is known as Pesach Sheni, which literally means the second Pesach. And that comes in chapter 9, verses 14, verses 4 through to 14. And the what happened in this section is that people who were Tomei Mace, people who had come in contact with a dead person, and this occurred during the second year of the sojourn of the children of Israel in the Midbar, in the wilderness, and therefore they were not allowed. Not only were they excused, but they were actually not allowed to bring the Korban Pesach, to bring the Paschal offering. And the people who were in this situation were so devastated that they were losing out on this opportunity. They very respectfully drew close to Moshe Rabbeinu, and they used the phrase "Loma nigora." Why should we be prevented? Why should we be excluded from bringing this special offering? And this is a very unusual concept, because the idea that Hashem gives us opportunities, Hashem gives us roles, and we are called upon. That is our mission. That is something that, instead of saying, why can't I be someone else? Why can't I do something else? We have to work within the parameters of what Hashem has given us. And so, while normally we're not going to take on another role, in this situation, perhaps because we are talking about the Korban Pesach, which is such a central part of our faith, even though today we are not at this point bringing the Korban Pesach, we still commemorate the festival, and we internalize the incredible foundation of our belief in Hashem and our value system that comes from the whole Pesach holiday and the mitzvot surrounding Pesach. But this inability to bring the Paschal sacrifice was something that was so important to them, and the way in which they approached Moshe Rabbeinu was so respectful. And so a combination perhaps of all of these factors meant that Hashem actually gave them an opportunity to bring a month later, when they would be tahor, when they would be ritually pure, and they would then be able to bring the Korban Pesach, although they wouldn't have to observe other details of the festival of Pesach. But this, where did they get this from? Where did they get this intense desire and intense love and appreciation of a mitzvah, instead of thinking, oh, this is causing me trouble, I have to buy an expensive korban and I have to follow all the laws of it, and that this is something that they did not want to use a valid reason that they would actually not have to perform this mitzvah. They very much wanted to perform this. Where did they get this dedication? And the DNA for this attitude and the purity of their intentions and the way they express themselves is something that we find in the earlier Sedras of Bereshis with Abraham Avinu, Abraham our father, when shortly within the few days after he's had his circumcision, he is devastated that he cannot perform the mitzvah of hospitality, of Gemilas Chasodim, and he sits at the entrance to his tents in the midday heat of an exceptionally hot time, and Hashem is trying to give him the circumstances where he's actually able to rest, but he is pushing, he is desperate to perform this mitzvah of Gemilas Chasodim. He does not want to avail himself of any practical reason that would actually excuse him from performing this mitzvah, whether it's the surgery that he has just that he needs to recover from, whether it's his advanced age, whether it's the fact that before the time of climate change, there is exceptionally hot weather, especially engineered by Hashem, so people should not be out and about, so Avraham Avinu would be able to rest. Yet this intense desire to perform the mitzvah is something that drives Avraham Avinu, something that uplifts him. And this perhaps is where the people who are making the request to be able to bring the Korban Pesach in an appropriate way, because they do not want to lose out on this opportunity of doing a mitzvah. And I think that we can all get the uplift from these two particular instances in this week's Sedra, at a time when we need uplift, at a time when we are facing as a people, as individuals, we are facing so many challenges and so many things that could pull us down. But when we look at these lights of the menorah that Aaron, that he is bringing up, and his light is continuing to shine throughout our history. When we look at the people who brought the Pesach Sheni, the Korban Pesach, on the 14th of Iyar, the month after the original date of the Korban Pesach, and we can understand that we have that DNA. We have that DNA of Avraham Avinu. We have that intense desire within us to perform the mitzvahs that are going to give us the uplift. And please God, give us the closeness and connection with Hashem. And please God, we should all merit to see our prayers answered and our dreams fulfilled. And please God, we should keep all of the mitzvahs, including the Korban Pesach and the menorah that was lit in the tabernacle, in the Mishkan, and in the Bet HaMikdash, in the temple. And we look forward to this time. Bimhei Rav Yameinu. Thank you very much for listening, and wishing everybody Shabbat Shalom.